in the mist-covered hills of 18th century England. Time stood still around the ruins of St. Verena Abbey. The villagers spoke of it, only in whispers, a place where prayers turned into echoes, and the echoes never faded. But for Elias Crow, a young historian determined to uncover lost truths, superstition was merely a veil for ignorance. When he arrived one cold autumn evening, journal in hand and logic in mind, he believed he was walking into a forgotten chapter of history. He didn't realize he was stepping into its final page. The abbey rose before him, vast, hollow, and wounded by centuries. Its once golden arches now hung heavy with ivy, its stained glass shattered into 1,000 haunted reflections. The evening sun cast long shadows through its corridors, turning silence into something alive. Inside, the air was thick with the scent of dust and rain. On the table of the caretaker's quarters, Elias found a single note scrawled in a shaky hand. "Do not linger in the crypts after dusk. The silence deceives." He laughed softly to himself. "Superstitions die hard," he said, though a chill crept through his bones as if the air disagreed. Days passed quietly. Elias worked tirelessly, documenting carvings and transcribing faded scriptures. Yet, every night he felt the same sensation, as though unseen eyes were watching from the shadows of the cloisters. And on the third night, he heard it. At first, it was nothing more than a sigh, then a breath, then words, soft, broken, but human. "Help us." Elias froze, his pen trembling in his hand. The whisper seemed to rise from the stones beneath his feet. He called out, but only the silence answered until a voice, faint and sorrowful, breathed his name. Driven by equal parts curiosity and fear, he followed the sound into the depths of the abbey. The stone staircase led to an iron door, sealed and ancient. On its surface was carved a symbol, a circle split by a cross, erased from every church record he had ever studied. He leaned closer. From behind the door came a faint chorus, voices rising and falling as though singing a long-forgotten hymn. He tried to open it, but the rusted hinges refused. The next morning, he asked the villagers about the crypt. Their eyes widened. One old woman, clutching her rosary, whispered, "They were silenced, lad, the monks." The choir sang blasphemy. When they were buried, they sang still. That night, Elias couldn't sleep. He dreamed of robed figures chanting beneath candlelight, their mouths open, but no sound escaping. When he awoke, his lantern was already lit, though he had left it cold. By the sixth night, he could no longer resist. He descended again into the crypt, lantern shaking in his hand. This time, the iron door stood ajar, as if waiting. The air beyond it was colder than ice, thick with the smell of decay. The whispers grew louder, no longer words, but music. A song without beginning or end, sung by voices that no longer belonged to the living he. He followed the sound into a vast underground chapel, buried deep beneath the abbey. Candles burned along the walls, their flames unmoving. In the center stood a stone altar surrounded by rows of skeletal figures, each draped in the remnants of monastic robes. Their jaws hung open as though chant, and on the altar lay a single book bound in darkened leather. He opened it. The pages were blank, but as the lantern flame touched the parchment, lines appeared red and glistening, as if freshly written. "Sing with us, Elias." He stumbled backward, the air vibrating with sound, 1,000 ghostly voices filling the chamber. Shadows rose like smoke, circling him. Among them, he saw a face, pale, hollow-eyed, his own. The lantern fell, shattering. Darkness swallowed everything. Weeks later, when the caretaker returned, the abbey stood as silent as before. Elias's notes were found scattered on the floor, his journal ending mid. His lantern still burned beside the altar. Now, on cold nights when the wind crosses the valley, travelers say they hear a choir rising from beneath the earth, and if you listen long enough, you'll hear one voice above the rest, young, clear, and desperate to be heard. The voice of Elias Crow, because silence, after all, is never empty.